Hello everybody, welcome to this NPTEL SWAYAM course on retail management. This is Professor Shagata Chatterjee from VGSOM IIT Kharagpur who is taking this course for you. This is week 5 and we will be discussing in this particular lecture retail operations management. So in this particular week we are discussing about retail supply chain and operations. While supply chain is related to stuff which is outside the retailing activity, which comes I would say majorly focused probably on the activities which is done before the retailing is done, and also some of the activities which is related to the delivery of the product, so which is done after the retailing is done. But here in the operations management we will be discussing about stuff that we do while in the retail space, while doing the retail. So this is more of an inside story of a retail activity. So what is operations management? Operations management is the effective and efficient and effective implementation of the policies and tasks that satisfy a retailer's customers, employees and management, and also stockholders if publicly owned. So stockholders means here basically the shareholders I am talking about. So it will be all the activity implementations of policies and tasks. So these are done inside the organization, and the major goal is to make people happy. Whom to happy? All your stakeholders. Stakeholders includes your customers, stakeholders includes your employees, your shareholders who are looking ahead for the profitability of the organization. So everybody has to be happy. So now when I am talking about efficient and effective tasks, what is efficient? Efficient means something that will actually give high ROI, and effective is something that will give very good result. So very good result is something which makes a particular task effective. And when the cost of doing that stuff is also lower, or you not only focus on the outcome but also focus on the input, and the output by input ratio is something that you are trying to maximize, that is something which we call as efficient method. So you have to focus on both type of task. You have to make sure that your outcome is very big. If your outcome is very small and the input is further small, that kind of an activity is not very prominent, not very important, because see, even if it is really giving very good ROI, ultimately the outcome is very small. So outcome has to be big enough. After you find out that the outcome is big enough, you have to focus on how to increase the output by input ratio. So that's called so that is the major goal of operations management. So in the retail context, we should discuss about what are the operational decisions that we take. So what kind of day-to-day task-wise or policy-wise decisions that we take. So first decision is what operating guidelines are used. So generally we create a guideline, a blueprint we call it. We'll talk about that as we come ahead, which will basically document all the steps, including the what happens when the product comes, how to order the products, what happens when the product comes, what happens, how to put it in the inventory, what will be the tags, what will be the nomenclature, how when the customer comes, what will be the standard operating procedures, how you will check him, how will you greet him in the door, how the customers will be treated when he comes in different store, in a particular store, in different sections, how the customers will be treated, how the billing will be done, whether the help will be given when the customer is doing the shopping. So every step that where you can help a customer, every step or every stuff that you do that will ultimately implement, after implementation, that will ultimately result in effective or efficient outcome, that is something that is documented. So this documentation is called, after documentation it is called the operating guidelines. So what is the operating guidelines that can be used? And this is a very broad question. In that broad question, there will be small parts, and each of the parts should be interconnected. You should not have a very strong inventory management system in terms of the operational guideline, and a very bad financial management system, or very bad, let's say, stocking system, or let's say not stocking, sourcing system. So if the sourcing system is not very strong, but the inventory management is very strong, it will fall apart. So every operating guideline should be interconnected with each other. What is the operating format and size of a store? So this is a broad strategic guideline that you are writing. So we discussed about how to decide among the operating format. Like there are different optimal formats that are there, different formats that are there. Which one are you choosing? What is the size you are choosing? So what is the relationship between shelf space, shelf location, and sales for each item in the store? So now this is a mathematical activity. So you write basically sales as a function of shelf space and shelf location. So one thing is very easy to say, that the more shelf space is given to a particular product, the larger will be the sales. This is very basic. There is no discussion on that. But whether the shelf location and shelf space has a particular role in that. So for example, it has been seen in consumer behavior kind of analysis that whenever I put, so this is a consumer who is standing, and let's say the shelf is a little bit longer than the person. So in more sales will happen in this direction. This is the place where the sales happens the most. Now this is the space which is like, these products are considered as aspirational products by the customers, and these products are some products which these are basically pull products. These customers will anyway purchase. These are basically day-to-day products. This is what customers come to buy in general. So these are the locational things that are there. So based on what location this particular retail store is, you will know, and we will discuss about that in the retail scape or retail merchandise planning or retail scape planning a lot in a further detail. But the location in where your product you are keeping has an impact on sales. And not only that, now that you know that okay, in the average height there will be most number of cells which is in the eye level. Now will it be like that when if I increase the cell space in the eye level, then that will increase the cells further? So there is the upper limit in terms of the eye level. So we generally have a diamond, this pyramid kind of a vision. So bottom we can see this much, eye level we can see this much, and height we can see this much. So it is easier for a customer to look down like this, but it is difficult for a customer to look up like this. So when I am looking up to check the aspirational products, I will only focus on the one that is in front of my eye. I will not focus on this direction or that direction. However, in the eye direction I have a more or less quite a bit of space. In the lower part I can see, generally it has been seen that the consumer sits ergonomically or physically it is easier for a consumer to see a lot. So that's why the cell space context that we are talking about, yes, cell space, the more the cell space the better, but the effective of this the cell space will also be I would say have an interaction with the location. So when the location of the shelf, the product is located at the bottom shelf, then the more cell space will give higher impact on the sales. In the middle part, it will be the impact of cell space will come down a little bit, and in the top, the impact of cell space will further come down. So these are some of the things that can be found out using customer research. How can personnel be matched to customer traffic flows? So this is another very important problem. Would increased staffing improve or reduce productivity? What impact does self-service have on sales? So this is a very, very important activity. So this is related to whether you want to staff your retail store enough. So that comes from the first basic thing that comes from it is the footfall prediction. So you have to predict the footfall in the customer, footfall of customers that you try to predict. So based on that, based on the arrival rate of the customers, you can assume that okay, if this many customers are coming in my retail store, how many retail personnel I will be required in the floor, how many will be there in the, how many will be there in the checkout center. In fact, how many checkout centers should remain open, how many gate I would say personnel in the gate, the security personnel in the gate should be there. So these are all activities that you generally want to guess, and these are mathematical activities. Again, in an operation management course, this will be taught in further depth. Those who those who are doing MBA or those who wants to know about this particular part in further depth should go and study operations management and operations research. But in short, these are very important activities. And what impact does self-service have on sales? This is where the operations management and service management comes together. So, okay, I know that there are lots of footfall happening, and I do not have lot of I may not be able to keep up with that kind of footfall with lots of customers, lots of employees, because employees will have their own costs. Then what will I do? Should I let the customers not have any service, or should I keep certain other options like self-service options? So if you have self-service options like self-checkout options or self-searching options, where there is a I would say a technology based dashboard is given and people can search the products and the location of the product inside a huge retail store. They can search the product and know that okay, in which number aisle which product is there from that particular this thing. And you can also know, the customers can also know that what kind of offers are going on or what kind of competing products are there for this particular product. So if you have that kind of a facility, which is a self-service facility, you can reduce the footfalls, or you can probably reduce the requirement of employees. Similar things are done in other industries also. For example, banking, So why did the ATMs come in? Because ATMs came in because you know that most of the customers come to the bank to withdraw or deposit cash. Now, if that is the major work and majorly to withdraw cash, if that is the major job that the customers do, I can easily reduce the footfall inside the bank by putting up ATMs, which is a self-service kind of a I would say technology. So how does that impact sales? Does that increase the number of transactions inside the retail store, or does that create a drop? So that is also important. What level of self-service technology you will put at for which kind of customers? Let's say if your customers are majorly, let's say the older generation who are not technology savvy as of now, you have to choose the technology that you are giving based on the customer base that you have. You cannot give very hi-fi, very high-end technology to a customer base which is predominantly not customer technology savvy, or even if they are technology savvy, they are not as savvy as you are looking for, or as savvy as the product or service in the self-service facilities that you are providing. So that balance should be there. Otherwise, it is going to impact the sales. There are more such decisions. For example, what effect does the use of various bundling materials have on store maintenance? So, how can energy costs to be controlled? How often should facilities be renovated? These are all related to environment. These are all related to carbon footprint. So, how you can ensure that those kind of stuff is taken care of? How we are doing a green retailing? How we are ensuring that you are having less number of waste material created, because bundling or packaging materials will create ultimately wastes. So how to manage those wastes is also an important factor that an operational manager or operational decision maker should take into account. How can inventory waste be managed? This is a very important factor, and I will come to that in a little bit. How can the personal safety of shoppers and employees be ensured? What level of insurance are required? How can credit transactions be managed most effectively? So, how much to give credit? How can computer systems improve operating efficiency? And how much of outsourcing should be done? How should crisis management be done? These are all important decisions. So each of decisions have multiple facets in it. It is not, none of these decisions are easy decisions, and that's why the operational guideline, which ultimately will try to cater all these decisions one by one at a time, should be focused on separately. For example, let me talk about the inventory. So now all these decisions are generally written properly in this operational blueprint. What is an operational blueprint? An operations blueprint systematically lists all operating functions to be performed, their characteristics and their time. So it basically lists down whatever activities that you have to do. So whatever operational guidelines that you have in a document that lists all this is called operational blueprint. The retailer specifics in detail every operating function from the store's opening to closing and who is responsible for them. So the person who is responsible of the act, how that act has to be done, when to be done, what is the requirement of that particular act, everything is detailed in this document. Now this document is, there are lots of elements in the document. For example, what are the customer actions? So when the customer, as I was talking about the customer guidelines, or when it is written customer blueprint. So a customer comes into your retail store. How will you greet him? Whether he will do a security check or not. Whether he will smile and say namaste or not. Whether he will do certain frisking or not. Customer now comes from one particular from the entry stage towards the retail, whether you will stop and ask him to drop the bag or not, whether when somebody drops the bag, whether you will give them the token. So every activity, every small activity has to be listed down. So why it has to be listed down? So that a new employee, when he comes in and does the job, the employee has an idea that what kind of activities has to be done, what is the responsibility, which part is whose responsibility. The person who is in baggage center or safekeeping center should not say that okay, this is the security's responsibility to put the bag, not mine, or vice versa. The security person should not say that this is the baggage guy's responsibility to collect the baggage, not mine. So that syncing should be documented, that exactly what will be the job of the security person and what will be the job of the person who is doing the baggage. How he will keep the baggages inside the baggage center also, that should be listed. Whether the big baggages should be put in the floor or inside any box, and how the numbers will be given, and what kind of checks the person will do when he delivers back the baggages, what kind of products or baggages the baggage person will keep. All those details should be listed. Similarly, when the customer comes and browses through various retail merchandises, then whether somebody will come in, whether somebody will help that particular customer, whether they will greet the customer, whether the customer, whether any kind, what kind of information will be given exactly if information is being sought, and when is the right time to leave the customer, that okay, let the customer do their own work. So everything. So when you come to this, I would say in the check-in counter, what will be the first message that the person in the check-in counter, checkout counter will do, means the billing counter, what kind of message that particular person will give, and then what kind of services will be provided. So everything will be detailed in the customer actions. Now next is on-stage visible contact employees actions, like face-to-face encounters with the customer. So how face-to-face encounters will be done. Backstage employees actions. So those people who are in backstage, for example, let's say people who are doing the tailoring in a apparel retail store, or people who are doing the stocking, people who are putting the products in the shelf, who are basically working when the retail store is getting ready to be opened. So at that time we will find out lots of people come, they will put products from the inventory and put that in the shelf, and all the expired products they will send it off, and they will add on the product in a certain way such that customers like the I would say the way the products are put. So what will be their job should be listed. Support processes. For example, if you are a person who is helping in the delivery activity, you are basically Amazon's delivery partner or Zomato's delivery partner, then exactly what are the activities that you have to do, how you will greet, how will you deliver, what will be your standard operating procedure should be listed. Physical evidence like tangibles that customers are exposed to during contact with the hour. For example, what kind of physical evidence are important in the retail store? Let's say I talk about any kind of any materials which is directions, let's say, or any kind of signboards, or the changing rooms, how the changing rooms will be lit, how that will be cleaned, or what will be the procedure inside the changing room, how many dresses you can take, 4 dresses or 6 dresses or 10 dresses. So all those things should be listed in the operational blueprint. Now, what can be the advantage of that? Why will you require that? Because the more it is documented, you will see that it often becomes very difficult to know that what is exactly required. And these retail employees might not be a person who know about customer psychology. They might know about customer psychology, but they know about the customer psychology over experience. When the new person comes in, he might not have any idea. So, to have a standard operating procedure in multiple retail chains that you have, you should create this kind of a blueprint. So, why don't we do a small activity after this particular slide, is that you stop this particular video here, and you should probably try to write, let's say if you are a small grocery retail store. So, it's a small grocery retail store, 1,000 square feet area, and it's located inside a residential complex, but customers can come and go inside the retail store. 1,000 square feet is quite big, so that customers can go inside and search their products. So this kind of a retail store, you can think about, let's say Aditya Birla More, or let's say even small heritage stores, not the big ones which is 2-3 floors, not like that, one single floor heritage store, let's say 1,000 to 2,000 square feet. What will be this particular retail store's operating procedure? So, from opening to closing, exactly what are the jobs that are there, who will do that, how will that be done? So, if you can write down, for example, pre-opening, opening, first customer arrives, next the whole procedure. What will be the procedure when there is basically switching between one group of employees to another group of employees. So try to write out in a PPT format, not in a text format. In a PPT format, you try to write down that what are the operating procedures that you want, and then open a discussion forum, discussion chain, or don't open a new one. If there is already existing discussion chain, go and post in that discussion chain, and then compare with other participants, I would say submissions, and how your operating guideline is basically, did you miss something, as simple as that. If you check your with somebody else's and then you compare and contrast with each other, you will have an idea that what more can be added, so there are so many small things that are there in this operating guideline thing. So you might and no, there is no standard format. Every company will have their own operating guideline, and this operating guideline keeps on improving over time based on new situations, based on new problems that retailing spaces face in different contexts, in different cultures, different locations. So this will keep on improving. So you have to study other people's operating guideline and get an idea. Now, operating guidelines are not something which are available free flowingly outside in the market. So either you should have a contact inside your competitor stores or some other stores to get an operating idea, or you have to create on your own. You have to brainstorm on your own. So I am asking you to do the second thing, brainstorm on your own. Try to find out what are the standard operating procedures that you can think about for your retail store. Contrast it with your co-participants, I would say, operating blueprints idea, and from there you will get an idea that how we can improve the operating blueprint. So as I stop here in the operating blueprint, in the next video, in the next classes, we will discuss about all these 3-4 things that we mentioned about. We'll discuss about the operations management. Under the operations management domain, we'll discuss about the inventory management, insurance management, crisis management, credit management, security management, and also what should be the optimal size and format, how to decide that. So these are some operational decisions, how to take these small decisions. We will discuss about that, because these decisions, based on these decisions, this operation blueprint will be created at the end of the day. So let's come to those particular topics in the next video. Thank you very much. I will see you in the next video.